Deborah, explain yourself, now.
I don't owe you anything.
You can't just run.
Watch me!
You still owe me an explanation, Deborah.
I owe you nothing.
The Korean Mafia boss got his secretary pregnant before our wedding. I married his rival and walked out with his entire empire behind me. I want you to picture something: a hospital lobby. White marble floors, so polished you can see the ceiling in them. 200 people in wedding attire, standing absolutely still, like someone pressed pause on the whole world. Me, in a bridal gown, holding a bouquet I never asked for. Tears I refused to let fall burning at the back of my eyes. And him, Kang Seo-jin, the most feared man in 3 countries, the man I almost married twice in my heart, and once on paper, standing across from me with his tattooed hand stretched out like I owed him something. Like I hadn't just walked out of a hospital room where his pregnant secretary was lying in a bed, wearing the same necklace he placed around my throat on our 6-month anniversary. When Seo-jin took 1 step forward, 3 of his guards moved with him. Silent, synchronized, practiced. The kind of movement that happens without an order, because the order has already been given 1,000 times before in darker rooms than this. The guests near the front stepped back without knowing why. That is what real power feels like. You don't see it coming. You just feel the air change. But on my left stood Ryu Taewon, his greatest enemy, his most dangerous rival, the man I had married, legally, quietly, strategically, exactly 19 days before this moment. Taewon's men did not move. They did not need to. That stillness was louder than anything they could have done. That was the difference between control and command. I want you to understand something before I tell you this story. I am Deborah Osei, a girl from Atlanta whose mother, Gloria, worked double shifts at a nursing home so I could finish my hospitality degree. I have calluses on my feet from years of carrying trays. I know what it means to smile at someone who looks through you like you are furniture. I know what it means to be underestimated. And I also know what it means to walk out of a burning building with everything that mattered, while the man who lit the match stood in the ashes watching. This is that story. It started on a Tuesday, which is the most ordinary day of the week, which tells you that extraordinary things never announce themselves. I was a senior waitress at Hana Sky Lounge, the kind of rooftop restaurant where the menu has no prices, because if you need to ask, you cannot afford to be there. My monthly take-home after tips was $3,800. My rent was $1,700. My student loan payment was $480. I don't need to do that math for you. You already feel it in your chest. I had been there 3 years. 3 years of perfect service, perfect smile, perfect posture. And my manager, Claudette, who had a degree in making people feel small and a minor in taking credit for other people's work, had passed me over for floor supervisor twice. Both times handing the position to women she brunched with on Sundays, but I stayed, because my mama always said, "Don't leave the table hungry just because someone else ate your portion. Wait, and order again." The night everything changed, a private party booked the entire top floor, 40 tables. Black SUVs lined up outside like a funeral procession. Men who stood with their hands clasped in front of them, and their eyes moving like cameras. The kind of security that does not exist unless whoever they are protecting has genuine enemies. Claudette pulled me aside. "Deborah, I'm putting you on that floor tonight," I said. "Claudette, you told me last week I have poor table presence," she said. The client requested a natural aesthetic. Natural aesthetic. I smiled the way you smile when you understand exactly what someone means and choose not to give them the satisfaction of a reaction. I went upstairs. The man at the head of the longest table was Kang Seo-jin. I had heard of him the way you hear about weather before it arrives, whispers at the waitstaff station. He tips in cash, always large. He never sends food back. I had also heard. He runs the Kang Syndicate. 3 cities, hundreds of businesses, every one of them clean on paper and dangerous underneath. I had heard that men who crossed him did not cross anyone again. None of that prepared me for the way he looked up when I approached the table. Not at me. Through me, the way powerful people do when they have spent years looking past everyone. Then something shifted. His eyes came back, landed. He said, "You're new." I said, "I've been here 3 years, sir." A pause. Then they've been wasting you. I kept my face professional, but internally, oh, this man. I told myself, "Deborah, he is a customer. Take the order. Go home." But 2 seats to his left sat OG Yon, his personal assistant, sharp-faced, structured blazer, who refilled his water before I could reach for the pitcher. And she looked at me the way cats look at things they have already decided are beneath them. Something in me straightened. Okay, we'll see. Seojin came back the following week, and the week after that. By the 3rd month, he offered me head of guest resins at his hotel group. Legitimate business. 6-figure salary, full benefits, housing allowance, company vehicle, I said. "Mr. Kang, I don't accept gifts from men." He said, "It's not a job offer wrapped in flattery. It's a position wrapped in a contract. Interview on Friday. Decline it after you've heard the full terms. The terms, $120,000 base, quarterly performance bonuses, company vehicle. Residential housing in the building's upper wing." I accepted. My mama cried when I called her baby. $120,000? I said, "Mama, I know." She said, "Lord, that man must already be in love." I said, "Mama, please," but I was starting to wonder the same thing. Here is what I did not expect. I was excellent at this job. Not serviceable excellent. Not adjusted to the role excellent. Genuinely, demonstrably, undeniably excellent in a way that made the people around me uncomfortable and the numbers very comfortable. Within 4 months, guest retention was up 23%. Within 6, I had redesigned the entire events onboarding system. The legal team, noticing my operational command, added me to subsidiary board documents as acting director. A formality, they said. Standard procedure for senior staff authorizing vendor contracts. Nobody explained to me what signatory authority actually meant at scale. Nobody explained it to Seojin either. He signed off on it without reading the full scope. He trusted me. He just trusted me for the wrong reasons. I did not know yet that this single oversight would cost him everything. The personal side moved quietly. Seojin was not a man who showed softness in public. In private, in 40-minute dinners after his team had cleared out, in garden evenings when the city noise flattened below us, he told me things. That his mother had died when he was 11. That his father had built him like a weapon and forgotten to build him like a person. That some nights the Empire sat on his chest like concrete and he couldn't name a single person he trusted. One evening, I had brought food my mama mailed from Atlanta, rice and peas, seasoned the way only Gloria Osi can, and he sat on the garden bench in his $4,000 suit and ate it without asking what it was. He was quiet for 5 full minutes. Then he said, "I've never had anyone share food with me like it was the most normal thing in the world." I let the silence sit. The way Mama taught me. Some pain needs air. Don't rush to close the window. 3 months later, he asked me to marry him. I said yes, and I believed I knew this man. I did not know this man. I found out on a Wednesday. I had gone to the executive floor to deliver documents. Seojin had forgotten. His office door was slightly open. I heard Ji-yeon's voice first, that precise architectural voice that always made me feel like she was filing me under irrelevant. Then I heard what she said. "The baby is yours, Seojin. 12 weeks. I have the scan." The world did not spin. The world went very, very still, like every molecule of air decided to stop moving at exactly the same moment. I stood outside that door for 14 seconds. I counted. Then I turned around, walked to the elevator, pressed the button, stepped inside, and rode down 42 floors in complete silence. In the lobby, the doorman said, "Good afternoon, Miss Osi," I said. "Good afternoon, Mr. Park." I walked to my car. I sat in the driver's seat. I put my hands on the steering wheel. And I said out loud to nobody, "Okay, Deborah, now what? If you have ever found out that someone was building a second life behind your back, while you were building a future with them, subscribe right now." Because what I did next was not heartbreak. It was strategy. Ryu Taewon came into my life the way trouble always comes, at exactly the moment you are not looking for more of it. He was Seojin's oldest enemy and the only man Seojin had ever publicly called dangerous. The Ryu family ran a rival syndicate, legitimate on 6 continents, quietly dangerous in 3. Their empire was older than Seojin's and built differently. Less brute force, more architecture. Taewon was younger than Seojin by 4 years, sharper in a different way, with a smile that arrived slowly and stayed without apology. I had met him once at a charity gala, briefly, before Seojin had moved me to the other side of the room, with the quiet efficiency of a man rearranging chess pieces. He called me 2 days after I found out. I said, "How did you get this number?" He said, "The same way I get everything." Okay, I said, "I'm engaged to your enemy." He said, "I know I have information you need, not to recruit you, not to use you, because you deserve to know what you are walking into." I said, "Mr. Ryu, I already know." "A beat then, all of it." The pause before I answered told him everything. He said, "Meet me, 1 hour." What Taewon showed me was not just Ji Yeon's pregnancy. It was a document trail 2 years deep. A hidden account in Ji Yeon's name, funded monthly by Seojin. A secondary apartment 3 blocks from Kang headquarters. Every receipt, every transfer, every message thread laid out in order. Not an affair, a second life. Fully constructed, fully funded. Running parallel to mine like a shadow I had never been allowed to see. I sat across from Taewon in a restaurant no one from Seojin's world would walk into, and I read every page. He didn't say I'm sorry. He didn't say I told you so. He ordered tea and let me read in peace. When I was done, I looked up. "What do you want in return?" He said, "Nothing from you. From Seojin, everything." "But that's not your problem to carry," I said. "Then why give this to me?" He looked at me steadily. "Because you looked at me at that gala like I was a person and not a threat. In my world, that is rare enough that I remembered it for 8 months. I didn't know what to do with that. So I folded the documents, put them in my bag and said, 'Thank you, Mr. Ryu.' He said, 'Taewon.' I said, 'Taewon.' And that was the beginning of something I had not planned for. Here is what I did not do. Cry, beg, confront Seojin in a hallway like a woman with no options. Here is what I did instead. I called my mama. I said, 'Mama, I need your prayer and your silence in that order.' She said, 'Baby, what happened?' I told her everything. A very long silence. Then Gloria Osi, who raised me on double shifts and proverbs, said, 'Don't leave that table hungry. Wait, and order again.' I said, 'That's exactly what I'm doing.' Over the next 10 days, I met with Taewon's legal team every morning before work. They walked me through what I had and what I hadn't known I had. The signatory authority attached to my directorial position allowed me to authorize operational transfers at the subsidiary level. Transfers that, once properly structured, could shift managing interest into a new holding entity. An entity Taewon's corporate attorneys had already registered, in my name, independently, without the possibility of removal, even by Taewon himself. When I asked his lead attorney why it was structured so that even Taewon couldn't touch it, she looked at him. He said simply, "Because it should be hers, not mine." I sat with that. Then she placed a second document on the table. She said, "There is one additional requirement." She explained that the Ryu family, trust, old money, old rules, built by men who believed business alliances should be sealed by blood, marriage, or both, contained a cross-family holding clause. For the merger to be legally binding and protected from external challenge, it required a registered civil partnership or marriage between the two principals. I looked at Taewon. He looked back at me with no attempt to soften it or spin it. He said, "I know how this sounds. I also know you did not come here to be cornered into anything. So I'm telling you plainly, if you say no, we find another structure. It will be slower and less protected, but we find one. This is your choice, not a condition." I said, "You knew about this clause before you called me." He said, "Yes," I said, "and you still gave me the file first, before any of this." He said, "Yes," I said, "Set the appointment. 19 days before my wedding to Seojin, Ryu Taewon and I signed a civil marriage certificate in a registrar's office with 2 witnesses, his head of security, Bae Hyun-sik, and my best friend Priya, who cried the entire time and kept saying, 'This is the most dramatic thing I have ever been part of,' while also clearly enjoying every single second of it. We did not tell anyone. We went back to our separate lives, and we waited. Seojin had planned the wedding, the way controlling men plan everything, with total precision and zero emotional intuition. 200 guests, a Milan-designed dress, a venue booked 18 months ahead, every detail accounted for. Every detail except this one. That the woman he was marrying had already married someone else. And this one, that Oh Ji-yeon, 22 weeks pregnant, would go into early-stage labor complications the morning of our wedding and check herself into Seoul Central Medical, the hospital directly attached to our venue, at 6 a.m. I found out because Ji-yeon's assistant, a frightened young woman named Min Seo, who had been carrying guilt like a stone in her pocket for months, slid a note under my bridal suite door at 7:15 a.m. Miss Osi, room 412. I'm sorry, I read the note. I sat with it for 2 minutes. Then I put my wedding robe over my gown, picked up my bouquet because I had already paid for it, and it was beautiful, and I walked 4 floors down to room 412. Ji-yeon was lying in the hospital bed. She looked like a woman who had been keeping a secret so long that the relief of it finally breaking was indistinguishable from the devastation. She looked at me. I looked at her. I said, "Is the baby healthy?" She blinked. That was not the question she had prepared for. She said, "Yes, they say she's fine." Then, quietly, "He told me you didn't love him the way I did, that the engagement was for business. I believed him for 2 years." As I said, "Ji-yeon, whatever he told you about me to keep you in place, that is his sin, not yours." Her shoulders shook once. She turned her face away. I set a single lily from a bouquet on her bedside table and walked back out. The lobby was a painting I had not commissioned but had somehow always known was coming. Seo-jin was there, in his tuxedo, 3 moving the moment he moved. His tattooed hand rose toward me as I came through the hospital ward doors. Behind him, 200 guests who had followed the sound of crisis, the way crowds always do. On my left, exactly where we had arranged, stood Ryu Tae-won, in black, calm the way deep water is calm before it becomes a current. His legal team waited at the main entrance, briefcases open. The same executives who once stood when Seo-jin entered a room now watched from the lobby edges, waiting to see which direction the power had moved. They were about to find out. Seo-jin said, "Deborah, let me explain." I said, "Seo-jin, 3 questions, then I'm leaving." The room went completely quiet. The hotel group's subsidiary board resolution from March. "Did you read the full scope of the signatory authority you approved for me?" His face moved through 3 expressions very fast. That authority allowed me to transfer managing interest to a holding company pending merger review. I did that. The holding company is registered in my name, irrevocably. Silence. The merger was completed at 9 a.m. this morning. More silence, and the civil partnership required to finalize that merger. I completed that 19 days ago. Someone in the crowd exhaled loudly. Someone else said something I didn't catch. I didn't look away from Seo-jin. I said, "Which means, Seo-jin, that Ryu Tae-won is not your rival standing beside the woman you were about to marry. He is my husband standing beside the woman who now controls the business you built." Seo-jin's jaw worked. His guards held position. His hands, for the first time since I had known him, were perfectly still. He said, "You planned this," I said. "You built a second life next to mine for 2 years. I built an exit in 3 weeks. We are not the same kind of planner." He took 1 step forward. The 3 guards moved with him. The air in the room shifted the way it shifts before something irreversible happens. Tae-won did not move, did not step between us, did not reach for me. He simply stood, still and present, and that stillness held the room more completely than any guard could. I reached up, unclasped the platinum necklace, the one that matched Ji-yeon's, and set it on the marble reception desk beside me. I said, "I hope she recovers well, and I hope your daughter knows her father. That matters more than any of this." I turned to Tae-won. He held out his hand. I said, "I'm not walking out of here on anyone's arm." He pulled his hand back immediately, nodded once. "Of course," I said. "You can walk beside me." And he did. The legal proceedings finished in 4 months. The transfer stood. Every challenge Seo-jin's attorneys filed was met with documentation that was precise, legitimate, and airtight. Because I had not stolen anything, I had used exactly what he gave me. The business exodus began the following week. Quietly at first. Partners who suddenly had scheduling conflicts. Investors who needed time to review their positions. Then less quietly. When the story crossed 3 financial publications, Mafia heir loses hotel empire to former fiancé through legal signatory transfer. The reputational damage was precise and total. In the world Seo-jin moved in, losing to someone you underestimated was not just a business failure. It was a statement about your judgment, and everything he had built rested on the myth of his unimpeachable judgment. That myth was gone. Bai Hyun-sik told me, not because Taewon asked him to, but because he seemed personally satisfied by the information that Seo-jin had called my number 41 times in the first 2 weeks. Every call showed as unknown on my phone. I declined them all without knowing it was him. When I found out, I did not feel triumphant. I felt the quiet that comes after something heavy is finally set down. Hyun-sik also told me that Seo-jin had come to the hotel, my hotel now, 3 weeks after the confrontation, that he had stood in the atrium for 11 minutes. He had looked at the new branding, the new staff flow, the new lighting that made the whole space feel like it was breathing differently. The same executives who once stood when he entered were now moving through the lobby with purpose that answered to a different name. He left without speaking to anyone. I thought about that image for a long time. A man standing in a room he used to own, understanding with full clarity that the loss was entirely his own making. Not bad luck, not betrayal. His own choices returned to him in a shape he did not recognize. I didn't feel sorry for him, but I didn't celebrate either. Some reckonings you respect without enjoying them. Claudette texted me 5 weeks after the story broke. Deborah, I always knew you were going places. If you ever need hospitality staff for the Gu Hotel, I have so many contacts. I read it, set my phone face down, picked it back up and replied, "Thank you, Claudette. I'll keep that in mind." Then I did not keep it in mind. Some things you release not because they don't matter, but because they no longer have weight. 6 months after the lobby, Taewon and I had worked in the same building, shared legal meetings, attended business dinners together, and maintained the careful professional arrangement we had agreed to. A real marriage on paper, a real friendship in practice, and a deliberate wall around everything else. He never pushed past that wall, not once. One evening, we were in the hotel garden. My garden, though I still found that sentence strange, and he was eating rice and peas from a container my mama had mailed, because she had decided Taewon was her kind of people after he sent her flowers on her birthday, without being asked or telling me he had done it. Priya told me. Priya tells me everything. I said, "You sent my mother birthday flowers." He didn't look up from the container. She fed me. It was the right thing to do. I watched him eat for a moment. Then I said, "Seo-jin saw what I was worth and used it. You saw what I was worth and made sure I kept it." I've been trying to find a way to say that for 6 months. He set the container down. He looked at me with that full attention he always gave, like I was the only signal in the room. He said, "You don't owe me anything for that," I said. "I know. That's the only reason I can say it freely." He went very still. I reached across and took his hand. He didn't move, didn't reach back. He let me hold it, exactly as it came, without asking for more than what I offered. Like he understood completely that this was mine to give, and his job was simply to receive it with care. I said, "Okay," he said, "Okay." The city moved below us. The lights came on the way they always do, all at once and then gradually, the way the world does when it finally decides to be seen. Here is what I need you to understand, in case you came for the Empire. Yes, I have it. The hotel group, the subsidiary holdings, the legitimate portfolio Seo-jin spent a decade building. I run it. Not perfectly, not without hard days, but with the same energy I brought to every tray I ever carried. Like the work deserves full attention whether or not anyone is watching. Because that is the thing about being underestimated for long enough. Eventually, you stop performing for the people who underestimated you. You just become what you always were, and you let the results speak in a language everyone understands. Seo-jin built an empire on the belief that he could see everything. He couldn't see me. That was his only real mistake, and it was enough. Deborah Osi, formerly a senior waitress at Hana Sky Lounge, currently everything else. If this story stayed with you, if you know what it feels like to be overlooked in a room you were built to run, subscribe right now and drop your city in the comments below. Tell me the moment you stopped begging to be chosen and started choosing yourself. I read every single one. More stories are coming. Stay with me.